and welcome to Stock Market Today, sponsored by Interactive Brokers. On the show, we are going to be breaking down some bullish chart action for Keysight, Lam Research, and Synopsis. But first, we want to take a look at those major indexes. It's Alyssa Corum here with Ken Shreve. And Ken, we did see the major indexes close mixed for the day. The Dow up about 0.3%, the Nasdaq down about 0.3%, but coming well off of its lows. The tech index did.
Yeah, well, the Nasdaq was down about 0.9% intraday. It looked like it was going to try to close positive into the close here, but it looks like it's going to end with a loss of about 0.3%, 0.4%. You know, the market had a lot of things to worry about at the open. There were a couple of hawkish comments from two Fed presidents. Of course, we've got Jerome Powell's testimony or speech in Jackson Hole on Friday. So the big question is how the market is going to react to what he says. So it's all about the Fed right now. Overall, I think a pretty constructive performance for the market. NASDAQ was down pretty sharply early, and it did manage to rally back at least a little bit.
Yeah, it did, although we are still seeing that pesky resistance at the 50-day line. So especially tomorrow with that potential headline catalyst, we'll have to see what happens.
Yeah, it's that has been well documented in recent days. The 8,000 level for the NASDAQ, certainly a round number that it is trying to conquer. The 50-day moving average is a little above the 8,000 level for the NASDAQ, but yeah, I'm writing the big picture today and still talking about a technically challenged market, but you know, also an uptrend that is still intact here under a little bit of pressure, and so we're going to stay as optimistic as we can and hope that Fed Chairman Jerome Powell says something that the market likes.
Yeah, that's right, and everyone make sure to check out Ken's big picture at investors.com when it comes out this afternoon. But let's take a look at a few individual names, starting with Keysight Technologies, which gained about 13% in heavy volume, blasting higher on its quarterly earnings report that showed earnings growth of 40% and sales growth of 8%. Very strong technical action in reaction to this report.
Yeah, IBD 50 stock, you know, and it's a provider of electronic measurement solutions to the communications industry. I was kind of looking at the earnings report. You did have another quarter of decelerating sales growth, but the bottom line is that earnings and sales did come in above the high end of the company's prior guidance, and market also seemed to focus on strong orders at its commercial communications segment, which is getting strong 5G orders. So pretty nice earnings report from IBD 50 stock. Keysight, it gapped up. It was strong all day. It closed right around that 100 level, but the buy point here, 94.62, probably a little bit extended after today's move, but a good solid breakout, like what we want to see.
Yeah, and the move accompanied by a relative strength line that's hitting new high ground, so showing outperformance versus the S&P 500. Always good to see that bullish signal.
Yeah, it's still you know, a challenging environment for breakouts.
Right.
We had several strong breakouts yesterday during Wednesday's strong showing for the market. Some of those breakouts faded today, but Keysight, good solid breakout, stayed strong all day.
Yeah, that's right. Well, let's pivot our attention to Synopsis in the design software group, which gained about 5.4% today, also in heavy volume, gapping up on its quarterly earnings report. Acceleration for bottom line growth, hitting 24%, up from 7% last quarter. Revenue still in the single digits, but the high single digits coming in at 9%.
Yeah, and also acceleration too, from 7% to 8% to 9%. So not rip-roaring sales growth, but this is a well-run company, really a second test of the 50-day moving average here for Synopsis, and a gap up today. When you look at a weekly chart here, the stock still does not look all that extended. It's really just a second test of the 10-week moving average, sitting near its recent high of 138, 139. So anytime a stock breaks out and finds support a couple of times at the 10-week moving average, we say it's still actionable. So you know, really, this is just a second test of the 10-week moving average, and a successful test so far. Yeah,
and so that was a weekly chart that we were looking at there for Synopsis, and the line that's on there, that red line, that's actually the 40-week moving average, not the 10-week line, but we'll get that adjusted for next time. But when you do pull up the charts yourselves, you can see that nice rebound off of the 10-week line.
Yeah, really solid day for Synopsis, and another strong earnings report.
All right, well, let's also take a look at a weekly chart of Lam Research, which is back in buy range now after testing its own 10-week line and even testing a sell signal there, falling a little bit from its buy point, but it's now on the upswing.
Yeah, and it's actually back above that 209.60 entry. It was interesting going through the Nasdaq 100 today on a day that saw the Nasdaq close lower. You had names like Micron, KLA, Lam Research, three semiconductor companies ending with gains of 1% to 2%. And the Philadelphia Semiconductor Index really didn't move much at all today. So strength in Lam Research, good for the bulls here, and it's still trading near that buy point after a visit to the 10-week moving average. So some of these chip stocks continue to look pretty decent.
Right. Yeah, technically, but from a fundamental perspective, it's a little bit of a different picture. At least looking in the short term, declines on both the top and bottom lines, and steepening declines at that over the past few quarters. Although analysts do expect the bottom line to pick up again in 2021, some 30%.
Yeah, I think the market right now is, especially when it comes to the semiconductor equipment firms, they're looking out probably 3 or 4 quarters and saying these guys have probably made it through the worst of it, and the fundamentals are going to turn around sooner rather than later. So when you look at the annual estimates for 2020, 2021 for a lot of these companies, they are expected to, growth is expected to ramp back up. So a lot of these companies are being looked at as turnaround stories, and again, Lam Research, KLA, Micron, all strong performers in the Nasdaq 100 today.
Yeah, that's right. Definitely a place to keep an eye out, especially like you said, if we are to see improving fundamentals moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, they're turnaround stories, so sometimes turnaround stories are not going to have the huge earnings and sales growth that we like to see, but if you identify a company as a turnaround, you can kind of look past declining earnings and sales and think, well, technicals are strong, the market is betting on a turnaround here, and
right.
I think that is going to be the case with a lot of these chip equipment firms.
Yeah, well, definitely important to keep in mind those fundamentals when you are scanning for stocks. All right, Ken, thanks so much, and thank you all for watching. But before we go, we want to let you know that a new episode of the Investing with IBD podcast drops today. So make sure you're keeping tabs on investors.com/podcast for when that launches. It's another good one. You definitely don't want to miss it. And in case you missed our investing strategies show, you can also check that out at investors.com/investing strategies. Lots of great tips this week on how to handle these popular stocks, whether it's Apple or Microsoft. You don't want to
Tesla.
you don't want your emotions to get in the way when you are looking at buying some of these, popular big cap tech stocks.
It's next on my watch list.
All right, sounds good, Ken. All right, everyone, thanks again for watching, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow.